going on YouTube? This is Aaron. I'm making a video. This is entitled The Conquest of Happiness by Bertrand Russell. Why am I making this video? I am making this video because I feel that there is a ubiquitous phenomena going on in society, and that is there is a great deal of unhappiness to be found throughout humanity, especially in the Western world. Bertrand Russell was a 20th century American philosopher. Wrote around 30 books, I believe. Profoundly wise man. And I wanted to get into what little bit of what he's saying of why people are unhappy. Maybe I can shed some light to people, and myself included. He said the happiness of the reformer or revolutionary depends upon the course of public affairs, but probably even while he is being executed, he enjoys more real happiness than is possible for the comfortable cynic. So what does that mean? You know, a lot of people complain about their lives, the state of affairs, how they're not, their rights are being taken away, and the state of the union is going to shit, and so on and so forth. But rarely does anybody take a stance, because it's comfortable. It's easy to just complain and be a cynic, and to feel like Bertrand Russell talks about this combination of powerlessness and comfort, right? So like the powerlessness makes people feel like nothing is worth doing, and then the comfort makes the painfulness of this feeling just endurable. So we see this, this is the person at the bar watching the football game who will make an occasional reference about how the economy is tanking, or how life was so much more tolerable 20 years ago than it is now, and then they'll take another drink of their beer and they'll immediately refixate their mind back onto the frivolous entertainment of sports. And I'm not hating on sports. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, but I think there's a problem when we put an inordinate amount of energy in that at the expense of putting energy in things that really are more substantial, like health, wealth, love, and happiness, as Ty Lopez would say. Russell talks about, and I got the book right here. I'm going to refer to it, because I don't always write everything down. Talks about boredom and excitement, and that a life too full of excitement is an exhausting life in which continually stronger stimuli are needed to give the thrill that has come to be thought an essential part of the pleasure. So this is a person that's accustomed to too much excitement. It's like a person with a morbid craving for pepper. I would kind of liken this to alcoholism, right? Like, or drug addiction, like the party life, like going out, getting fucked up, and it's great, the feeling, this euphoria, this ecstasy that we feel when we're under the influence of mind-altering substances, and how we have so much fun in the whole experience, but in the thrill. But now we need more. And because essentially the amount that it takes to have a good time once is never gonna, it's always gonna increase. So I think that's really what he's getting at there. So he says a certain power of enduring boredom is therefore essential to a happy life. He says all great books contain boring portions. All great lives have contained uninteresting stretches. I really relate to that. I mean, like I want to get my PhD in anthropology and cultural anthropology, and right now I'm writing up a dissertation, and there's a lot of boring shit in there. I mean, it's 30, 40 pages of an ethnography that I did back in 2012 that some of it is just downright monotonous, but we've got to endure. Russell goes on to say that a generation that cannot endure boredom will be a generation of little men unduly divorced from the slow processes of nature. I mean, evolution. Think about evolution. Think about how we evolved as a species from Lucy to Homo erectus to Homo ergansis to Homo habilis, first hominid to make tools. Homo erectus, first one to leave Africa. Like, this took millions and millions of years to get the modern Homo sapiens sapien that we are, human beings that we are today, right? So, make sure that we have to make sure that we have mental discipline. He goes on to say that a happy life must be to an extent a quiet life, for it is only in an atmosphere of quiet that joy can live. What I'm getting at is, if you think about this in like a rational, practical sense, like picture yourself driving a car. You're driving, you're going to work, whatever you're doing, you get stuck in traffic. I think a good litmus test to see if you are really, truly happy, you have genuine happiness, is if you can sit there, enjoy your breath, enjoy just existing. But if you have to constantly fuck with the radio and looking at your cell phone, looking at Facebook, because you can't stand the boredom, there's a problem. There's a serious problem that you have, and that you are not truly happy. You are not truly content. You are using external stimuli as distractions to take away from the thoughts that you really know about your life is fucked up. Pleasures, Russell says, pleasures which are exciting and at the same time require no physical or mental exertion, such as the theater, should occur rarely. This excitement is in the form of a drug. So let's examine that, right? I don't mean to harp on sports, but it's a good example. If we're watching SportsCenter for 6 hours a day and constantly talking about the game after the game has already been played, which we did not play in, we are not getting paid, we don't have money on it, it's just frivolous entertainment. Think about how this makes sense. To allocate an inordinate amount of energy into something that has no consequence, no imminent bearing on one's life. I mean, this is outright insanity. And common people are doing this every fucking day. They're neglecting the things that really need to be looked at because they don't want to look at these things. So there is some boredom that needs to happen. Also, I want to touch on back to that quote about the happiness of the reformer or revolutionary depends upon the course of public affairs, but probably even while he is being executed, he enjoys more happiness than possible for the comfortable cynic. Be a reformer, be an activist. I don't care what, even if you're on the wrong side of history, you will invariably receive more joy in your life if you are actively pursuing something, trying to make a difference, as small and as inconsequential as it may seem, than sitting on the sidelines just complaining, sitting on the sidelines just being a cynic. I've had to find this out the hard way, because for the longest time that's what I did. I fancied myself an intellectual, that I was detached from the outcomes of humanity, and that I need not concern myself with that of the masses. And I still don't like being around most, I would say the mass people, because again, as Henry David Thoreau would say, the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. So I also want to talk about competition. I feel like this is really extremely pertinent, especially to the guys out there. So he talks about this man. Consider the life of such a man. A businessman, successful businessman. This is a guy that has a charming house, charming wife, charming children. He wakes up early in the morning while they are still asleep, hurries off to his 9-to-5 office job, and there it's his duty to display the qualities of a great executive. He cultivates a firm jaw, decisive speech, an air of sagacious reserve, calculated to impress anybody who walks in. Converses with various important persons on the phone, studies the market, has lunch with some important person with whom he's conducting business with. He arrives home tired just in time for dinner. Tries to enjoy the company of his woman and his children, but really can't, because he's so mentally exhausted from playing the role of a successful man in conventional society. Russell calls this the working life of this man as the psychology of a 100-yard race. But as a race upon which he is engaged is one whose only goal is the grave. That's interesting to ponder right there. So, we're taught to live this life, right, of this regimented discipline, and gotta be successful. And this particular, I'm talking to the guys out there. Gotta be the provider. And also he says that men in America, for instance, are taught that whatever makes you the most amount of money is your worth. Like, your net worth is your actual worth as a human being. So any education that doesn't necessitate a huge salary should therefore be discarded. That's a faulty way of looking at life, though. I mean, they say that American boys feel that this is the only thing that matters, money, and do not wish to be bothered with any kind of education that is devoid of pecuniary or monetary value. Education used to be conceived very largely as a training in the capacity for enjoyment. Enjoyment, I mean, of those more delicate kinds that are not open to wholly uncultivated people. In the 18th century, it was one of the marks of a gentleman to take a discriminating pleasure in literature, pictures, and music. We nowadays may disagree with his taste, but it was at least genuine. Right? There was a genuine interest in intellectualism, in literature, and philosophy, and history, and biology and evolution. And now these things are just, it's like everybody thinks it's just a means to an end. What kind of job can I get? What kind of income can I get? Russell says, if you have, the most important thing in work, especially for a young person, is congenial relationships. So if that means that you're going to have to take a slightly less salary, but you'll have those relationships, it is much better to do so than to make another 30, 40 grand when you're around people that are extremely competitive. And remember, men only compete with other men that are great in their own industry. I mean, a great biologist isn't going to compete or care much about a great mechanic. It doesn't affect that person directly. Listen, I'm making these videos. I'm going to continue with this book. That's kind of like why people are unhappy, and I'm going to more focus on. And I could go on forever, but I don't want to make this video longer than it has to be. I'm going to make my next video entitled "What Makes People Happy." And the book is kind of set up into like two different parts. Like part one is essentially why people are unhappy, and the part two is more of what causes people to be happy. So I'll make that video probably in the next day or two, and I hope you guys enjoy my videos. Thanks.